Good evening, members. Welcome to our licensing meeting. We start off item 2. Oh, we've already the webcasting, haven't I? I'd like to remind everyone present that this meeting will be broadcast live to the internet and will be capable of subsequent repeat viewing, with copies of the recording being made available for those that if they request it. By being present at this meeting, it's likely that the recording cameras will capture your image, and this will result in your image becoming part of the broadcast. You should be aware that this may infringe your human and data protection rights. If you have any concerns, please speak to the webcasting officer. Right. Item 2, apologies for absence, please.
Yes, Chairman, we have apologies from Councillor Hadley, Councillor Lisa Morgan and Councillor Sharif.
And Councillor Bond, haven't we?
I've not received any further apologies.
All right, okay, yeah. Right, okay. No other apologies. Right, item 3, declaration of interest. That's done. Item 4, any other business. Well, we have any other business. I don't think we've ever had it before. But, Councillor Kesker.
Thank you, Chairman. I would like to ask Mr. King. I believe that in the new budget, the late night noise and I don't know what else you describe it, but the telephone line is going to be discontinued. I would like to ask him how he thinks this might affect licensing.
Mr. King.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. So the out-of-hours noise service will no longer be available as of the 3rd of April. My understanding of the situation is that what will happen is if we receive complaints of noise nuisance, the officers will contact the complainant and ask them to complete a diary, which is pretty much as they do now. They will then assess the diary, and if the issues are ongoing, then they will allocate a resource and monitor the situation going forward. So that's my understanding, which pretty much mirrors what we have now.
Okay. Any questions on that?
Just a comment, Chair, but this is not to do with this department, but I just think if there isn't an immediate response, the people who are going to be in the front line of this are going to be the ward councillors. We do use the system, we use diaries now and so on, but we do rely on officers to come and give their reports. And if that is going to be delayed because of the new system, it ought to be noted that ward councillors may be the first to hear about it.
Okay, thank you, that's noted. Right. No any other business? Move on to item 5, the minutes of the meeting, the last meeting on the 26th of October. Can I confirm these are the correct record? Thank you. Item 6 is the minutes of the licensing subcommittees. Meetings will be available for the relevant chairman to sign off. Do we do that now?
Yes, they are signed after each meeting.
So we don't do it, we used to do it at this meeting, no, everybody got
Not at this meeting, no.
That's what I thought. Okay. Item 7. The taxi licence tariff update. David King, please.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Chair, under Section 65 of the Local Government Miscellaneous Provisions Act 1976, any charge made by a Hackney carriage vehicle must not exceed the table of fares published by the licensing authority, irrespective of how that journey was arranged. The previous fee tariff was adopted in 2014, and while subject to a review in 2018, it had not been increased since. The tariff was scheduled to be part of the wider taxi policy review. However, due to increasing fuel prices, cost of living and inflation, it became necessary to bring that review forward to support our licensed taxi trade. In October 2022, the Licensing Committee were presented with a number of options for consideration, and it was agreed that the increase proposed under option 3 be endorsed. In summary, option 3 proposed to increase the tariff for the first mile by £1 and by 30 pence for each additional unit of 176 yards or part thereof. This would increase the average 2-mile journey from £5.50 to £7.50. The setting of fares is a function of the executive and therefore cannot be undertaken by a regulatory committee or full council. And therefore, before any published fares can be increased, the council must undertake consultation with the trade and public consultation by way of placing a public notice in the local newspaper. The consultation period must last no less than 14 days. Due to town and parish council elections in May and cabinet timetable constraints, consultation on the new tariff was delayed. However, on the 9th of October 2023, Cabinet agreed to the public consultation endorsed by the Licensing Subcommittee, and in doing so it agreed to extend the minimum 14-day public consultation required to allow for the proposal to be properly considered and sufficient time for responses to be made. Where no objections are made, the proposed taxi tariff be implemented on the date specified in the public notice, or where objections are made, it would reconsider the proposal in light of those objections within 2 months of the date specified in the public notice. The consultation began on the 30th of November and ended on the 31st of December 2023. During this period, the Council's licensing team consulted widely on the proposed tariff increase. This included a public notice being published in Epping Forest Guardian on the 30th of November and on the Council's website and at the Civic Office. In addition, all taxi drivers, operators, councillors, town and parish councils were directly consulted. A press release was also issued and it was included on the EFD mailing list to residents and posted on our social media accounts throughout December. During the consultation, the Council's licensing team received 27 responses from residents, taxi drivers, operators, Epping Town Council, Loughton Town Council and a ward councillor. 13 of those responses were in favour of the proposed increase, 6 related to fares being charged by private hire vehicles, which the Council does not have the power to regulate and was not part of that consultation. 2 opposed any increase to the existing tariff, 5 raised concerns that the proposed £4.50 fare for the first mile was still too low, but otherwise no objections, and 1 suggested that the fares should increase to £5.50 for the first mile and to 50 pence for each additional 176 yards or part thereof. In light of comments received, Cabinet met to reconsider the responses on the 15th of January 2024, and it agreed that the tariff detailed in the consultation represented what it believed to be a fair increase for drivers, whilst maintaining a reasonable fare that passengers can be expected to pay. However, in reaching this decision, Cabinet acknowledged the concerns expressed by some respondents who believed that the starting fare for the first mile would be too low, and it agreed that the fare will be subject to further review in 12 months' time following the implementation of the new tariff and at regular intervals going forward to ensure that the fares remain reasonable and fair to both the licensed taxi trade and the fare-paying public. Accordingly, the taxi tariff proposed in the consultation was agreed and came into effect on the 28th of February 2024. All Hackney carriage drivers were advised of the decision and the meter update took place at North Weald Airfield over 3 days in February and March this year. Over this 3-day period, 173 metres were updated to the new tariff, which represents 81% of the fleet. The remaining 19% of drivers have been given guidance on how to update their meters going forward. It should be noted by the committee that the Council can only set a maximum tariff. It is permissible for Hackney drivers to charge a lesser fare should they wish to do so. Therefore, the remaining 19% of drivers can continue to operate under the previous tariff until such time as the meter is updated to reflect the new maximum permitted fare. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Lyon.
Thank you, Chairman. Very interesting report, and about time I think we actually raised our tariffs. I'm just concerned that we want to encourage good drivers and professional drivers, and whether we've actually got the balance right. I know it was implemented or agreed by Cabinet, but again, are we in the right level? Because we're still quite low in the pecking order of tariffs. And the other thing that I wanted to raise was the fact that the 19% that didn't agree to or haven't responded, did we get any comments from the drivers as to whether they were satisfied with the tariffs, or the 19% particularly were happy not to raise their tariffs?
To take your second point first, Councillor, there are some old meters in some of the taxis that are now obsolete, so the software couldn't be they couldn't obtain the software for the old meters, so it meant that they'd have to change their meters, and that comes at a cost. So there was a reluctance within a small number of those. However, they have been given guidance on how to, and given contact details on how to have their meters updated, and we anticipate that they will have it done over the coming months. In terms of the fee, there is an undertaking, and that was actually recommended by committee as well, that we would, going forward, review our fees annually, just to make sure that they are we don't fall far behind as we did before. Thank you.
Okay. Let's continue then. As the last.
So on those meters that are old or haven't got software that can be updated, is it the driver's responsibility to pay for those meters to be replaced?
Yes, Chair, it is. So it's the driver's responsibility to pay for the meters, and they had to also pay for the software upgrade, which they paid direct to the gentleman or the company that comes along and does the meter upgrade. The actual cost of the meter upgrade was £20. It was a nominal fee, and we, the council, did not charge for our time or our involvement in resealing the meters, so there was no other charge apart from the £20 to update the meter. The cost in terms of replacing the meter isn't exorbitant, but it's still around £200.
Councillor Whitehouse first.
Yeah, two things, if I may. You mentioned that the review of the taxi tariff had been divorced from the wider review of taxi policy, and I wondered what happened to that wider review and when that would come to committee. And the other thing is, I mean, clearly you'd expect, a greater level of fee. It might be reflected in a greater willingness of people to drive Hackney carriages. And I just wondered if there had been any change in supply. I mean, I know it's early days, but are there any indication of a change in supply of Hackney carriages since the increase in fees?
Yeah, as you've indicated, still early days. So the beta update has only just taken place. So it's still too early in terms of that to report back on committee if there's any change. Going back to the point that you raised quite rightly about the licensing policy, the policy is due to be reviewed. It is a massive document, so we may need to consider looking at doing it in stages rather than try and tackle the whole policy as one, because it is a very extensive document. But there are some changes that we would like to make, and also to make sure that it's in line with our air quality and sustainable transport going forward. So that's something that's on our to-do list, if you like, and we'll be looking at certainly everything around safeguarding. We'll be looking at the emissions in vehicles and so on and so forth going forward. So we just need to make sure that that is obviously that we follow, and we look at other policies that the council has set to make sure that they're in sync.
Okay, Councillor Sunga.
Thank you, Chairman. With regards to the meters, as we move into the new technology, the new era of smart meters, has there been any consideration given moving forward with new licenses that we actually grant? Have we looked into possibly having like smart meters that where you have the Bluetooth technology to see if these meters are calibrated? It's just a thought moving forward as we go greener.
I certainly imagine that as there's emerging technology, then that's something that we'll certainly look at. I don't think the technology is there at the moment. So obviously local authorities, every local authority sets their tariff in slightly different ways. There's no kind of set formula that we apply. So at the moment, the tariffs have to be set in specific software, then has to be adopted for each local authority that they work in. But going forward, I can see the technology, if it's there, then we will switch to that rather than the old-fashioned meters.
Can I just say 81% of the Hackney drivers have actually got their meters upgraded, which is really good, and the 19%, I'm sure, there's two dates there, obviously the 29th of February and the 7th of March, we've both gone, but will there be any further dates for them, another opportunity to mop up?
There won't. We did the 2 days, so we did the 28th and 29th of February, and then we did a further mop-up session, which was in the 7th of March. And to be honest with you, lessons learned, this was the first time we'd done it for a long time. We was busy on 2 days, but very quiet on the day in between. So I think going forward, when we do the next update, we will do it over a 2-day period. However, what we can do is we can refer, as the drivers have been given information and guidance going forward now, anyone wishing to update their meter, they're referred to the company that does the meter update, and then once they've had that update, they then go to our Oakwood garage where they have the meters resealed and recalibrated. And during that period, and going over, just going back to the point on the meters, we also did, road tested as well over and measured mile the vehicles. So we overall, over the 3 days, we road tested about 15% just to make sure that the measured mile was correct. And it was across all those vehicles.
Okay, Councillor Lyon.
Thanks, Chairman. Interested in the sort of electric vehicles and proportions. Do we know what proportion of our taxi fleet are moving over to sustainable vehicles, electric or hybrid? And the sort of second question really is, you know, how do we encourage people to actually move over to that sort of technology? Is it influenced at all by the charging equipment out in the streets?
In terms of the vehicles, in terms of our fleet, we're running quite a high emission fleet. And so the number of electric vehicles, I will have that information. I can come back to you with that because I do have that on a report elsewhere that's also been done with another colleague in the council. Part of the impetus as well for the increase was not only because it was long overdue, but also we want to see an increase and people moving over to newer vehicles, electric vehicles, and that was seen as a barrier, the fact that our rate was so low. So by increasing that, then obviously it makes that more affordable for our drivers. So that is something that we'll be monitoring going forwards. Of course, infrastructure is always going to play a part as well. So if we don't have the electric charging points, then that is always going to be seen as a barrier. So the two go hand in hand. In the earlier report that I presented to committee, also referred to the transport report as well that was done on electric vehicles. So I'm working with my colleague Stephen Lloyd-Jones as well, and we'll be working with him going forwards in terms of the emissions and the taxi policy.
I think it's a really valid question that Councillor Lyons brought up about electric vehicle and the charging points. But if we can put together some sort of an incentive as well for people to move across to electric vehicles, something that's food for thought moving forward as well.
Again, discussions that I had with my colleagues, we're also exploring whether there's government grants and other incentives that we can tap into. So not necessarily funded by EFDC, but whether there's other grants out there and in other, you know, and at least signpost any kind of incentives to you know, increase the greener fleet.
Okay. Anything else on the taxi licence tariff? Okay, moving on to item 8, levelling up white paper, page 10 and 11. Again, down to you again, David.
Thank you, Chair. Again, it relates to taxis. So the government's levelling up white paper contained a proposal to explore the transfer and control of taxi and private hire licensing to combined and upper tier authorities. The white paper states the UK...
Okay, yeah.
I'm more than happy to you know, to skip to the end, Chair. All I was going to say is that at this time, so we are expecting, to summarise, consultation coming from the Department for Transport. We're led to believe that will be at some point in 2024. We don't have a date for that consultation or how long that consultation will be. But given the importance of our kind of, you know, that taxis play in our public transport infrastructure, it is something that we will need to give thorough and detailed consideration to. The next committee hearing that we have is on the 10th of October. However, if this consultation comes in over the summer, then I will be recommending that we have a special meeting to consider the proposal. Unfortunately, at this time, it is extremely light on detail. There is no further information I can give you, and there's more questions that are posed than answers that I can give you at this stage. But when we have more information, obviously I'll flag that with the committee, and if we can arrange a special meeting, then we can have further discussion. Thank you, Chair.
Okay. Any comments or questions? So move on to item 9, I think, yeah. The review of licensing subcommittee procedures. Are we all happy with the procedures we've got at the moment and the way we carry out our subcommittees? Councillor Whitehouse.
Yeah, there's two things I was going to raise. And firstly, I think we used to have statistics under this item so that we knew how many meetings had been held and so on and so forth. And I think that's quite useful because it allowed us to sort of keep track a bit more of what was going on. But I mean, I was going to ask, I seem to have done many fewer meetings this year than last year, and I just wondered if that was sort of random variation in the lack of the draw, but there have been quite a few cancelled meetings as well, haven't there? Yeah. And I wondered if there had been a drop in number of meetings this year, and also what whether representations have been similar in number to last year or different, and whether that had an impact on the number of committees.
Chair, I will be reporting on the yearly stats. That will be in October, because we haven't come quite to the end of the financial year yet. And we're currently in the process of doing our end of year returns for government, because we have to do them for the Home Office every year. So I'll present those to the committee in September. Anecdotally, I think we've had less applications this year. In terms of representations, actually, we've had two of the two applications that have attracted particularly high levels of representation, be Bliss Heights with 72, and we've got a hearing on Tuesday where we've had 50 representations. So in terms of representations, they've been quite high. But I think anecdotally, we've had less applications this year.
Mr. Whitehouse?
The other thing I was going to raise is, I think 2 or 3 or 4 meetings ago, we did talk about trying to consolidate the various agreed conditions at the front of the licensing reports to make it easier for members of the public and indeed members of the committee to see in one place what had been agreed, so there was less of referring to item D on page 54 and so forth. Also helps the writing of the decisions themselves, because a decision notice can just say the agreed conditions on page X plus, and I just wondered how far we got with that.
We are going to look at the committee reports and look to change those slightly, change the template and the format. In terms of the conditions, I think that arose where there have been conversations behind the scenes between the responsible authorities, and conditions have been proposed and potentially agreed with those responsible authorities. So that is something we will highlight on the front page, but that's not always the case on applications when they come forward. Sometimes there's just objections or so on.
Okay, Councillor Sogga first.
Thank you. I think it really would be helpful, Mr. King, if we can have those stats, especially how many decisions were made under delegated powers and how many were brought to the committees. I think you said that you will do that, but that would really help as well, just to get an idea of how many total number of applications in, how many were delegated and how many on the subcommittees. Thank you.
Yeah, Chair, as Councillor has said, so the report will contain the amount of temporary event notices, the amount of late temporary event notices, the amount of applications and variations. So it will be broken down so the committee will be given a full detail of the number of applications received over the last 12 months. So, but we usually do that at, by financial year.
Okay, Councillor Lyon.
Thank you, Chairman. Yeah, on the sort of subcommittee, one of the things that sort of bothers me at the moment is the confusion that exists between licensing and planning. There does seem, certainly from parish councils, town and parish councils, and their views, and I'm just wondering if there's anything we can do to make it clearer as to how the two are separate or even combined, because there's quite a distinction between planning and licensing, but they do come together at certain points. I'm just wondering whether there's anything we can do within our procedures that we could highlight that or make it easier to understand.
Any comment from other members, or?
Chair, yeah, so under legislation, so planning legislation and licensing legislation, they're two entirely separate regimes. So although that they may be interlinked in some way, the licensing committee are not bound by decisions of a planning committee and vice versa. I would be more than happy to pull together a guidance note actually on that could go out. I don't think we necessarily need to include it in the report. However, going back to the previous comment about the report template, where there are issues and these have been highlighted, we could potentially include something within the body of that report. Again, it wouldn't apply to every application, so it wouldn't need to be a constant, but I can certainly do that. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments on that item? If you know nothing else on the subcommittee procedures, we go on to item 10, review of current and future training needs. Well, this will be for next year if new members come onto the committee. We'll have to have a training session then, I think, if we have any new members on the committee. Councillor Sunga.
I think that brings a valid point, what Councillor Lyon has said about separating the licensing and planning applications. Whilst a lot of our district councillors are versed with that, a lot of the town and parish councils unfortunately confuse the two. So I know we normally invite parish and town councils to these meetings. Or are they allowed to?
I don't think we normally invite them, do we?
Yeah, it's a public meeting, though, isn't it?
Sorry.
What I would suggest, Chair, if you're happy, if you want to put that on an agenda for the next committee meeting, I'm happy to provide a guidance document, and then possibly that can then be sent out to the town and parish councils by the licensing committee, if you're happy with that document. So it can be sent out as an explanatory note, and we can circulate that by that way.
Are members happy with that? Okay, thank you. Item 10, the review of current and future training needs. We've done that then, you know, if anybody, we get new members on there.
Sorry, Chair, just one thing to add on the training. So I have prepared some training slides which have been sent across, and I believe they will be going on the litmus training system at some point. So when they are and that's gone live, it would be good to get members' feedback on those.
Yeah.
And there's actually some very good, useful training videos as well that have been produced by the local government association that we posted on those training slides, and there's councillor handbooks as well. So good to get feedback.
Right. So item 11, consider any further matters arising in respect to the council's licensing function not covered elsewhere in the agenda. Is there anything else members want to bring up? No? Okay. Moving on, item 12, the date of the next meeting, the 10th of October. I think that's it. Thank you everybody, all members of the licensing committee for all their help over the last year. And those are up for election, good luck.